Welcome to the SmartCocoon webinar. We're just seeing people log on right now, so we'll get started in a couple minutes. Please feel free in the meantime to drop any questions that you may already have, or during the presentation, if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in, as we want this to kind of be a little bit more of a conversation. We're just seeing more people join the presentation, so we're going to get started in about 1 minute now. So for all of you joining, thank you for joining. And we're going to give today's webinar will be about SmartCocoon and the investment opportunity we have here, and some of the really cool things that's happening in the HVAC space. Right. Our numbers are climbing here, so I think it's about time we'll get started. So thank you all for joining this session today. And I actually wanted to start by, I don't know, many of you may not know how SmartCocoon actually started. So SmartCocoon actually started in the home automation space. And we found that we were going through all these different homes, and we're doing this home automation, whether it's blinds or, blinds or whatnot in the home automation space. We actually found that a lot of customers said, yeah, well, it's great that you're doing all this stuff, but the biggest problem I'm facing is that I have rooms that are either too hot or too cold. And so they kept coming up with this over and over, and they said, maybe there's something here. And then, so that's how kind of SmartCocoon was born. We decided that we were going to go after specifically the problem that people were looking for, was that as having rooms that are too hot or too cold. And the real light bulb moment came on for SmartCocoon when you really think about it. If you had one light switch for your entire home and all the lights went on in every room of your home, you think it's ridiculous. But every day, there's 93 million kind of homes where people walk into their homes and have that one thermostat to control the temperature of all their rooms. And to give you an example, in Canada, about 2/3 of our energy costs in our home is actually heating and cooling. So that's a major kind of utilization of energy. And to think about that we're not controlling that room by room, there's obviously a lot of waste there. So SmartCocoon has really came to life to kind of really fix kind of this problem. And there's also lots of data that shows this is a major problem across North America. And so the standard deviation actually in home temperatures is about 5 degrees on average. So between like rooms or floors, so there's always this large differential in temperatures. The other thing that's really interesting on some of the research that's been done is that we spend about 25% of up to 25% of our energy heating spaces that we're not actually in. So you can imagine that's also a massive kind of waste of kind of energy. The other thing is obviously from an environmental perspective, in the US alone, there's 441 million tons of carbon dioxide produced each year just for heating and cooling, which is absolutely staggering. And to think that we can actually slice that down to a much smaller proportion is absolutely amazing. And that's what SmartCocoon is all about. We're actually providing people with room by room temperature control and comfort, at the same time reducing energy costs by about 30% and lowering their environmental footprint. So it's kind of the magic piece. And maybe what I think now is probably a good time to kind of show you what SmartCocoon is. So what we really are is the intelligent endpoints for HVAC systems. So there's been really no innovation in HVAC systems in terms of how the air is distributed in homes for over 100 years. It's been a very kind of stagnant industry. There's been a lot of innovation, for example, on the other side in terms of getting more efficient furnaces, air conditioners, and now the big push towards heat pumps. But in terms of how we get that air into our homes and through the rooms, it's still basically the same. It's through that ductwork. And the challenge with most of the ductwork is that there's always rooms that are not getting enough airflow, which means they're not getting that right kind of temperature. And so we have a device here which really just solves that problem. And it's really an amazing device. So on here, there's actually basically a computer board, software, and sensors. So when we basically drop this in your vent, so you just take your vent cover off. If you have a vent cover like this, you just take this off, plop in the SmartCocoon, put your vent cover back on. And then what will happen is the device will start sensing what's happening with your HVAC system. So it's going to know, oh, all of a sudden there's heat in there. So it's going to say, oh, I'm going to turn on and bring more warm air into to that room. And SmartCocoon is really neat this way in the sense that you can literally just plug it in and it's going to know what exactly you want it to do. In other words, put more hot air in the winter and then cool air in the summer. All this does automatically through the algorithms on the actual device. If you really want to have more kind of control, then we do have an app that you actually can control the device if you want to set temperatures, set schedules, and that type of thing. And what's really interesting is we've really narrowed down that kind of solving that problem of that room by room temperature control. And I'll just give you some indication of one of our customers down in the US. This is how big SmartCocoon can be. So this is a quote from Mike in California. These are literally drop in the vent and plug in. Setup is a breeze. I use 5 on the second level of my house in the problem areas and make it livable in the hot California summer. It was this or a $17,000 HVAC redo to split zones in the house. I'll take these any day. And that's what's really amazing about SmartCocoon is that these devices can make your existing HVAC system and ductwork much more efficient. So it's a much more cost-effective way for people to kind of get that comfort they want without having to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars to get a new HVAC system or trying to do multi-zone with your HVAC system. It's a really kind of ingenious way to kind of get at it, and that's why we're at the kind of event level. So one of the things that I want to talk about as well is terms of some people might ask, like, what are other people doing in this space, right? And I would say there's kind of 2 categories in this space. One is what we call the legacy booster fans. So these were kind of booster fans that people would drop them in their vent, and it wasn't very smart. It didn't know when to turn on and off, so it could be running when you don't want it running, and it didn't calibrate if it went from like hot to cold or just change the temperature. So it wasn't that useful, but the idea of getting more air into the room was a good one. Now, on the other side, what we call is smart dampers. And this is the idea where you kind of try to close off your vents to try and move more air to one room. So this is really interesting, right? We actually go about it a very proactive way. We say, okay, this is the room that I want that more warmer air or cool air in, and set that temperature, and we pull that air into that specific room. They're the opposite, where they want to close off, similar to some of you may have done this before, and that is, stuff socks in some of your vents. Whereas the challenge with that is that it's a very expensive solution because they have to be in literally every other room outside the room you have a problem, because they have to close all these other ones off to help try and force that air through into that room that you want. The challenge with that is it's creating more static pressure on your system, which is not really good for the longevity of your HVAC system. The other thing is, as you can imagine, a lot of the ductwork isn't perfectly sealed. So you do have some air leakage there. And the more pressure you put in there, the more air leakage you get. So you're actually losing a lot of that energy that you've actually spent to like heat or cool that air. It's getting kind of trapped in that system and leaking out to areas that you don't want it. And that's why SmartCocoon is so ingenious. But today I also wanted to talk a little bit about kind of where we're headed. So right now there's about, just to give you a sense of where SmartCocoon is, with this product here, or what I'm calling kind of our version 1.0, because it's absolutely amazing, but we have some more amazing stuff that I want to talk to you about today. So we've already sold over 12,000 devices. We've grown over 2.2x. Many of you may already know we have partnerships with Home Depot Canada, Home Depot USA, Lowe's USA, soon to be Rona Canada, Walmart, Best Buy. So we're really made some amazing partnerships with all these large retailers. Some of the new things that are kind of haven't been, or not kind of public information, what I want to share with you today as well, is that we've also signed on one of the largest distributors in Ontario for HVAC equipment, which is Air Heat. And they have access to about 1,500 contractors as clients. So that's a major big win for us. And the reason why this is important, so obviously, we do have some direct to consumer, but we also are B2B. And the reason why that B2B is so important is because when you have your furnace filter, when you have your furnace service, usually annually, there's a really great opportunity during that maintenance service for the HVAC contractor to come in and say, hey, do you have a room that's too hot or too cold? And the answer is almost always yes. And then they can say, do you want to see a solution to that? And it was a really great way to solve a massive customer pain point that's been a chronic That's been a chronic issue. And now that kind of gives them a way to earn extra revenue on what would have normally just been like a standard service call, which usually is around, let's get $150. Now they can kind of really magnify their earnings through the B2B. The other thing that we're recently in talks with too is actually getting on the shelf with Home Depot Canada, and that's a massive, massive opportunity. And that just to give you an idea, of the 12,000 units we sold this so far, more than half of that could be sold at once just to Home Depot, just for basically a couple month period. So it's a massive, massive win for us. And the other thing is, if anyone's familiar, once you kind of get into Home Depot Canada, then you get into Home Depot US, and as you can imagine, that just keeps 10xing the size of your sales. So some really exciting things happening there. And this is, again, we have amazing traction. This is just on our first generation product. But I wanted to talk to you about where we're heading and where's the future of SmartCocoon going. So we're actually moving, what we're going to call, I guess we'll call it version 2.0, is that we're actually moving to this concept of free heating and cooling. And this is really, really powerful. So this is the idea that you may have your basement today, or in the summertime, I should say. Today it's getting a little cooler, but in the summertime, maybe your basement is like 18 degrees or 17 degrees because you've been overcooling it. And then your upstairs bedroom might be 24. So we know that there's no one in the basement, and we know someone's upstairs, the ones that cool. So why wouldn't we move that cool air within the home to the area that you want it, instead of turning on the HVAC system? So it's a much more efficient way of doing it. So as you can imagine, the energy savings for that is absolutely massive, because right now we're saving about 30% on average. And for most typical kind of detached homes in Canada, that represents a savings of about $50 a month. So it's very, very significant. And as you can imagine, we'll have much higher savings as we kind of go into that version 2.0. So what you can kind of imagine for that version 2.0, it's really a series of these devices in many places throughout the house, where we can pull air from one area and move it to the other, and using the ductwork really as kind of a two-directional highway. The why this is so significant is that having that room by room temperature control allows a new kind of paradigm in terms of how HVAC systems can be working much more efficiently. So one is that now you can start choosing which rooms you want to heat and cool. So for example, you're at home working in your office today, and you're using just your office and maybe the kitchen. All those other rooms in your home don't need to be heated anymore. You could just kind of let those go to kind of an ambient temperature during the day, and then maybe before everyone comes back home, when you're using the other rooms, then you can bring the temperature back up. So there's massive energy savings along that route as well. The other thing is, we've been talking to a lot of the large energy utility companies. So there's a couple questions in the chat here. So one I'm going to answer a little bit later, just in terms of your investment, just in terms of the exit strategy. So I'll get to that. But there's another one here: how many homes have this problems, and how many have we fixed so far? So as I said earlier, there's 64 million homes that have this problem, that are either detached or semi-detached. They have forced air systems. We've sold 12,000 units, so we're just scratching the surface of what's possible, and that's this is what we're raising money, because we know we need to spend more on marketing to kind of reach more of this market, because it's a massive, massive kind of opportunity. And I'll get to the other one, Pedram, in a little bit. So going back to the advantages of free heating and cooling, this is really important. As I was saying before, we're talking to the energy utilities, and energy utilities have this massive problem where they get these big peaks in demand during, like, say, for example, when it's very hot, everyone's air conditioners are running, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's why they have, brownouts and blackouts and all this stuff going on. And so that big hump is very, very expensive for them. And so SmartCocoon, because of this kind of free heating and cooling idea, can really reduce that hump, which makes it very, very strategically important to these energy utilities. And that's where you can start getting into their kind of rebate program, which again can really explode your sales, because we're solving that problem. The other thing that's really interesting about SmartCocoon is that in this new version 2.0, as you may or may not know, I don't know if any of you had your home energy audit, a lot of the recommendations they're actually telling you to do is actually say, I know for us it was, use kind of a ground source, kind of a heat pump of some sort. So all across North America, this is what they're pushing, because they're very efficient. And it's absolutely amazing. Again, that innovation on the what they call the bottom end of HVAC is actually incredible where it's going. But the utilities, what I've talked to, they said there is some challenges with that. And that is, I don't know if anyone's familiar with having one, but if you kind of like have your furnace running, you put your hand over the vent, you can feel the air is quite warm. Like it's almost like putting your hand over a little fire. But for heat pumps, the heat is just, it's a lot more gradual and slow. So in other words, you don't feel that same kind of roaring heat. And that's a challenge because that means that you're not going to be as comfortable as a consumer because you're getting this kind of slow heat to kind of warm your room up to the desired temperature. But with SmartCocoon, you can actually divert that heat to where you actually want it. So you're pushing more of that warm air into that specific room, which means you can get that room up to temperature much faster. So in other words, again, focusing your air kind of to where you need it. And then Pedram, yes, I'm going to get to your question right now. So that's what's actually their future direction for SmartCocoon, and we're really excited about it because the traction we've already had with our version 1.0 is just the beginning. And the other thing I would like to talk about too, for anyone who's very interested in the smart home, we're actually working on what we call our Matter integration. And Best Buy just kind of did a big blurb on this actually today. They're one of our kind of online partners as well for sales. And Matter is kind of this amazing process where now all of your kind of IoT devices can start talking the same language, start talking to each other. So you can imagine, for example, for SmartCocoon, you have amazing things like you can say like, "Hey Alexa, turn on my SmartCocoon in my bedroom and get it the temperature to 22 degrees." And then that all kind of happens, through voice commands, or if you're using Google or whatnot. And so that's where these devices become much more infinitely kind of powerful. And that also includes SmartCocoon talking to your HVAC system to say, for example, say you're in one room and you're saying it's 20 degrees, but I want it 22 because I'm cold. You could actually say, okay, turn on the HVAC system. I'm going to divert all that air to get this room up to temperature, and then we'll turn it off. So these are the powerful things that's coming with SmartCocoon, and this smart home space is really exciting. It's also growing rapidly. So by 2027, it's predicted that about 2/3 of home are going to basically be smart homes now with smart home devices. So this is the way of the future, and we're the only ones kind of really positioned to do that. Okay, so so then the other thing is I want to talk about we want to talk about exit opportunities. Wait, one more question here from Bree. Is it patented? What could stop a Chinese knockoff from competing with you? Also, where do you make your products? Very, very good question. So yes, it's patented for that exact reason, because we need to protect our IP. And we're very, very active with this. We're constantly developing more IP. We're actually doing that now, but we do have protection on this device so no one else can kind of do what we're doing. And so that kind of prevents them from kind of getting in our space. And then in terms of where we manufacture the products, they're actually manufactured in Canada here. So they're actually manufactured in Markham, Ontario. So just north of Toronto. And so this is amazing, right? I don't think we don't have it on there, the made in Canada, but it is the made in Ontario is on our box. And that's really important because we really believe in the quality. And that's also a way of protecting our product as well. We never have kind of, offshore where they can see all the components, everything that we're doing. So that it makes it easier for someone to copy. So we do kind of keep really tight control over that. Now I'll flip back. So Pedram's your question. Yes. So at the end of the day, if I invest, say $1,000, what can I expect my return on investment to be? The same question I asked when I joined the company. So very, very, very good question. So what's really interesting about this space, as you know, there's multiple ways a company can exit. But what's really interesting is what the space that we're in. There's I think two high probability ways that we'd be exiting, and they're both through likely being acquired. So one is, just to let you know in terms of what's happening, is like, for example, Generac acquired Ecobee, for $770 million. Google acquired Nest for $3.2 billion. And so these are massive. So that's in the smart thermostat space. And that's the other thing. I don't know if any of you have kind of made that linkage yet, but I think I'll make it for you now, is that smart thermostats are amazing. They're actually trying to help us, regulate our temperatures better. For example, if you're not at home, turn everything off and then turn it back on when you get home, which is amazing. But what they can't do is they can't actually change the temperature of an individual room. So we're kind of like the arms and legs to a smart thermostat. So they're growing like crazy, and we're we're really the perfect partner for both of those companies like that. And obviously, even Amazon's getting in this space now as well, and Honeywell, for example, because Honeywell's doing Amazon's version of their smart thermostat. And so these companies are gonna find that in order to give that consumer the comfort they want and give their higher energy savings, they're gonna need what we call, the smart HVAC endpoints, which is us at SmartCocoon. The other thing is in the HVAC space, as you know, there's lots of interesting companies. And I'm going to give you an example of Honeywell, and this is a little bit more of our technology that we're working on as well, is that on our devices, we can sense the actual airflow in your ductwork, which means we can actually tell you when your furnace filter is dirty. And as you can imagine, this is a $20 billion industry for air filters. We'd be the only ones that could actually tell you exactly when, based on airflow, when you need to change your filter. So I don't know if all of you are guilty, as I have been in the past, is maybe you don't change it as regularly as you should, right? Some people put a timer on, but the challenge is there's so many different things that can cause your air filter to clog up. For example, this year we had a lot of forest fires. So all that smoke in the air is going to clog up your filter a lot faster. Perhaps you have pets, or perhaps you're leaving the windows open. There's a lot of pollen coming in. Or you're burning a lot of candles. There's a lot of reasons why, for different reasons, you actually would have to change your air filter earlier than even the recommended what's on the package. And that also makes your HVAC system much more efficient, because the more resistance there is in your air filter because it's clogged up, you're not getting that airflow to the rest of the home, which is also harder on your HVAC system. And so it degrades it a lot faster. And so for us, that's a really awesome, great partnership and that's part of our future of reoccurring revenue as well, is that we're going to be getting into kind of the air filter kind of space, in terms of working with a partner air filter company and selling the air filters, because we can tell you exactly when it needs to be changed. And then also we can also even diagnose certain problems. If you have a problem, for example, with the coolant in your air conditioner, we actually will start to see that your system's turning on, but it's actually not giving cold enough air, and there's something wrong, and that's going to flag another opportunity for getting your HVAC technician out there to take a look at your system. So that's all to say that because these spaces are strategically important to both, for example, air filter companies, HVAC companies, for example, that are actually doing the furnaces, the air conditioners, the heat pumps. They're working on one end, but we're really working on the distribution of that. And they can be much more efficient with us than they can be alone. All right. So, okay. Thank you, Pedram. That was great. Okay. One more question. Are there plans to be in the commercial space? Perfect. Perfect question. I love these questions because it's something I didn't say. So yes, exactly. Right. The idea that you have multiple rooms and you have different temperatures in different rooms is a problem in both residential, but it's also a problem in commercial. I don't know how many people you talk to when they go to their office building, they're like either freezing or too hot, and then one person changes it and everyone else is complaining, and back and forth. So they have the exact same problem. And our technology is really, the platform of it can do both, right? We can work in that commercial space, for example, in office buildings. So all the intelligence is there. It's a matter of changing the outer hardware to fit in those devices. So that's another massive market for us that we're going to be going after, is in the commercial space. So Azza, hopefully that answers your question. And I'll just see if there's any other questions. And I think it's a good time for us to probably start wrapping up. If there isn't any other questions, I'll give it one more minute to see if we have any more questions. Perfect. All right. So I don't see anything else. So I just want to say thank you all. And again, feel free to reach out to us. Many of you have our email. Or if you want to contact us, have any more questions, we're here. And we really want you to join us on this mission. We're really here to change the way HVAC is kind of distributing its air to make it more efficient, more comfortable. And this is really the future of HVAC. So we have these big companies innovating at the bottom end. We're actually doing it so you get that room by room temperature control, and so you can be comfortable in your own home. So thank you very much for joining. Oh, Adrian, so question, how do I invest? Yes. So you can easily invest through Front Funder. And this is a crowd equity funding platform out in Vancouver. And this is amazing, right? Because for me, one of the things that's really important, and we're just putting the link in the chat for you there, actually. And so one of the things that's really important is that people get access to these kind of clean tech companies. And I don't know if anyone's been following, but clean tech has basically been the only space that's actually been outperforming. And there's billions and billions of dollars of investment through the IRA Act in the U.S. So this is the kind of literally the hottest place to be right now. And what's neat about Front Funder is that everybody can invest. You don't have to be a VC or a billionaire to actually be able to invest. And so this is your opportunity to kind of get in on the future of clean tech and feel good about the investment that does good, but then also generates good investment returns. So thank you very much for joining. I don't see any other questions, so we'll end it now. Thank you and have a great day.